second part, China. Now, before I start, I like to ask everyone, when we talk about China, what's in your mind? Anything. Tell me one thing you can think about China. Stephen.
Really, really large.
Really large. Okay. I'm just calling people I can say face. Derek, what you can think about China?
I think about Jack Ma and Alibaba.
Oh, great. Laura, I saw your face. What you can think about China?
Sylvie brought it up in the chat. I think of coal power.
Coal power. Emma, I saw Emma's face. What do you think about China?
It's really big.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm not going to call in everyone. We have time limit. I can talk about China like forever. So before we jump into it, I like to put a couple concepts in your mind when we talk about China. First, Stephen said, China is very, very big, and Emma said so. Yes, China is very, very big. Geographically, China is about the same size as US. However, China has more like a desert area, which is not a living condition. So geographic-wise, we're about similar. And I call US and China both my home countries because in my life, almost nearly half of my life in each one. Okay, so I do a lot of comparison. Second, when we say China is very big, that means two things, right? First, geographic. Second, I believe, Stephen, when you say it's very, very big, also means economic, right? Because today, since 2010, China became the second largest economy in the world. So some people even raise the question, is China still an emerging market because it's so big? I say yes. Remember this number. Total GDP, US still is the biggest one. In 2020, the total GDP number in US is 21 trillion. 21 trillion is US. China, 2020, total GDP is 15 trillion, 6 trillion different. However, another number, let's try to memorize. Population. How many people? What is our population in US?
330 million.
Great, perfect number. 331 million. You know, because I just write down it, but it's in your mind. How many, do you know how many people, what is the population in China? Let me give you the answer. 1.4 billion. So more than 4 times. Okay, if we divided the GDP, literally similar GDP by people, what is the GDP per capita, meaning GDP per person? This is a huge difference. In US, the GDP per capita, 65K, okay? China, literally last year, got to 10K. So 10K is almost a threshold for people, for companies, for countries to move out of poverty, become, I want to say, a middle-level country. So from the per capita level, China is still an emerging market country. But because the big size, it's like almost, people feel like, are they still emerging? I said, yes, yeah, for sure. Okay. Third, I like to go back to Derek. Derek said, when we talk about China, I'm thinking about Jack Ma, Alibaba, which is so right. 20 years ago, when I came here as a graduate student, none of the Chinese companies' name was heard by US. All I'm learning in business school is how US company go into China, establish a subsidiary in China, and build their US operation in China. What is the challenge? But today, we're talking about Alibaba. You guys must know Huawei. If you don't know, raise your hand. I don't want to say anybody's hand, right? You guys, a lot of you heard about the Didi, like I told you, I just talked about the last session. And, the Chinese news is all over the places. So for me, it's literally viewing, wow, China is really growing. Not only China as a country, but the Chinese companies become bigger and large and influential in the global. So I do a lot of Chinese company study. If you guys are interested, I'm not selling my book here, but if you guys are interested in, I have a book coming in November, 25 Chinese companies case study in the book, which will open your eyes about how different they run their business. If you're interested, or send me an email. I'm happy to send you a free copy as well. So not, like I said, not just selling the book, but I want everybody to know how different, because tell you what, I came from a corporate 2 years ago. I'm still a CFO of a company. When I was talking about the Chinese company to many of my US friends, they all say, wow, I didn't know. Wow. So I said, what do you know about Alibaba? They said, Alibaba is the biggest e-commerce company. What else? That's it. How do you know what is their operation? Do you know how they work with their vendor? Do you know what is the corporate culture? Not many people know, but I think it's interesting to understand because, again, this is my philosophy. You can disagree with me. I think, like it or not, Chinese company, some of their behavior is horrible. It's a shame, I'm Chinese too. But we have to learn how to deal with them because they are growing. They are growing to everywhere. You hardly find a company not doing business with China today globally. So we have to learn how to doing business with China. Without further ado, let's see how the ESG revolution in China goes. First slide, content. I want to review ESG in China, how ESG was introduced in China, how ESG investment and rating system has been developing in China so far, and what is the driver for Chinese company to chase the ESG performance. And then I will talk about the ESG revolution in China. What is driving the revolution in China, which become very fast. And by the end, I want you guys to be able to take away answers for 3 questions as well. What are the reasons of China's fast-growing ESG revolution? Second, what are the biggest ESG opportunity and challenge for China? Third, why US and China collaboration is so important for climate change? Okay, let's get started. First slide. Before I do ESG, I have to talk about the CSR. Do you guys know what the CSR means? Okay, corporate social responsibility. Have we heard about this term? Yes, I bet so. Because a lot of US companies are talking about corporate social responsibility. Before ESG, many US companies are doing the annual corporate social responsibility report. Today, everybody changed the ESG report. It's something similar, but not quite the same. So first, how CSR came to China? CSR was not initiated from China. Just like today, like I said, for Laos, for Vietnam, for Cambodia, they are so poor. Why they have to do CSR? Why they have to do ESG? It's nothing to do with them. They're trying to fight to feed their people. 30 years ago, the same situation in China. So when China starting to open the door, I don't want to get back too much about the China's history, but remember this, keep in your mind, 40 years ago, China is a country, closed the door. If you know anything about North Korea, think about that was China, how China looked like 40 years ago, 4 decades ago. So 1979, China, the new government, the new leader opened the door to the world. So when you open the door, what you want to do first? You want to get foreign exchange. You want to sell your product to the world. Then you have to satisfy your buyer, right? So the buyer from advanced country to say, hi, you guys have to follow the corporate social responsibility regulation because my country asked me to do so. If Chinese company has work with US company, they have to follow US regulation. When they work with the British company, they have to follow British regulation for the CSR requirement. So this is how CSR was introduced in China. Not 40 years ago though, 20 years ago. So CSR was introduced in China in 1990s when the Chinese economy become export oriented. When the country has to sell their product out, they have to follow the buyer's rule. And because CSR becomes so important for the export-oriented business, what China did, really made the game change. China made the CSR as part of the law, okay? Because they want corporate help the country grow. So China is a country, I don't know if it's the first country, but it's one of the countries made the CSR as a law and keep updating the law, eventually changed the status, become a standard follower to standard pioneer before ESG was introduced to the world. Like I said, ESG came out in 2005, getting into the business world, investors starting to talk about the ESG, but it's all in the Western area because China is still growing. Before 2010, China is still a very developing country. However, when the rest of the world in 2015, 2016, when the MSCI rating system came out, when the investor has to benchmark to the MSCI rating to decide if they want to allocate their capital to a Chinese company. So Chinese company realize, oh boy, I have to have a good score. Otherwise, the global investor is not going to put money to us. So the first motivation for Chinese company to adopt ESG is try to get a global investor to invest. That is the first step to access to global capital. And that is starting from Chinese company listed in US market, listed in British market, listed in other advanced countries market. They are access to global capital first. And then later, they have the taste, okay, when I'm doing good in the MSCI score, I get a cheap capital. More investors invest me, so my stock price getting higher. So people, it's like a snowball. The impact amplify little by little. And in the recent years, after China become the second largest one, the company, some Chinese companies become very attractive, like Alibaba. Global investors starting to invest in the Chinese company in US stock market, literally feel like I have to get a taste for the Chinese stock market. So the Chinese stock market is starting to have ESG guidance. And this is how ESG, the whole ESG concept gets started in China. Then let's talk about the ESG surge. How ESG all of a sudden become so popular. I have to say, I've been working with Chinese company for so long. Until 2018, 2019, I have not heard about ESG. Okay, neither I haven't heard ESG in US as well. Okay, I have to say this. As I said, both China and the US have not been the ESG leader yet. Since 2018 and 19, the ESG theme investment driven by EU banks, companies become bigger and bigger. So Chinese companies have a taste about the ESG, the huge return, the investors' appetite. So more capital flowing to ESG. So there is some numbers between 18 and 19, the ESG theme ETF in China, 4 times, growing 4 times. This is huge. Another number is the UN principle PRI signature. This is a signature you have to have before you can claim you are a responsible investor. Okay, this is getting into too much. And then, as I explained last session, we have ISS rating system, we have MSCI rating system. Those rating systems starting to get some Chinese companies in them. Since 2017, MSCI started to publish China ESG index. However, Chinese market realized we cannot only rely on the global rating system. We need to develop our own rating system. I will explain more why we need a Chinese rating system. But I want everybody remember some, date here. See, the Chinese rating system only came out 2 years. This is the very early one, came out in 2019. This is a newer one, came out in 2020. I listed these two, but there are more because I will show more information about this too. For the Beautiful China 100 index, I will show rating system. And for the Xinhua, I'm going to have you guys just try to memorize this number. Not memorize, just pay some attention. Because when we talk about the Ping An, I will dive into Xinhua. Okay. And again, why is it important to have a Chinese rating system? This answers the question Derek asked, why we need diversity. Because China have different culture, different legal system, different regulation system. So we need a different rating system to mimic those differentiations. Also, when China not only represent China represents the entire emerging market, which has 80% of the global population. Okay, keep this in mind when we dive further. Next slide. MSCI China. We talked about MSCI World for advanced country. We talked about MSCI for emerging company. Why I'm showing two tables here? Let me explain why. The first table came from my first book, which I wrote last year. I gathered the number in the September of 2020. The second table came from my second book, which will be published in 2 months. I gathered the number in May 2021. In between 8 months, you can see, I will have Molly send you a copy. You can see the differentiation. You can see the company, top 10 company swapped a lot. The first top 10, the top 10 last year are not the entire top 10 this year. They are changing. And also you can see the rating score very stably improve. And the third one, I want you to keep this number, 174 participate as of now. Next year, if I'm going to talk again next year, I would love to show another number. I believe we're going to see more company because I couldn't get the number for last year, but it's much less than 174. The number of companies participating in the rating is growing, and also the performance is keep improving. So this is something I want everybody to get out from the comparison. Next, let's talk about a Chinese rating system. This is the Beautiful China ESG 100 index, one of the earliest Chinese ESG index. Again, I put two comparisons. And look at the comparison. You're going to find something more interesting. Out of the top 10, 8 of them are different now. This is number one. And the second, there is no public disclosure for each company's rating score yet. I'll explain why. And however, okay, let me go back. This just explain to me why, two things. Why out of the top 10, 8 are different. Second, why there is no specific score for each company yet. Two things, because the rating system are still in the infant stage, are very young. It's not mature yet. So they are not really have a good system to gauge. That's the reason the companies are changing. Second, Chinese company growing so fast. I give you an example. I live in Chicago. I'm living in Glen Ellen. I mean, my neighborhood, I live in the same house for the past 15 years. My neighborhood is pretty much the same. I have one church, one new church in the 15 years close to my neighborhood. But if I going back to China 15 years ago, I literally cannot find, put this way, I go back to my parents now, I literally cannot find their old house. I cannot find the road go to their old house unless somebody took me. This is how different the change is. Here, we are a well-developed society. Everything is so stabilized. In China and many emerging market country and company, things are changing significantly every year, every month. So this slide just indicate those two elements for me. I hope I can, help you understand too. Next, the ESG movement in China is so quick. As we see, between 2018 and 2019, it's a 4 times increase. However, after the pandemic, after last year, the ESG was accelerated by the pandemic because we realized we have to pay more attention for people's well-being. We have to pay more attention for environment, for climate change. So ESG became as urgent in China as in US. So what China is doing in this ESG movement yet, if we say US is not a leader at all, China, neither China, as long as they are the first one, the second largest country in the world. China in 2020, one of the China stock market, by the way, China has 3 stock markets. We have Shanghai stock market, we have Shenzhen stock market, and Hong Kong. So HKEX is the Hong Kong stock market, which has been the leader for ESG regulation. Last year, Hong Kong stock market updated their ESG rating guidance to require climate-related disclosure and align with the TCFD. So they are going faster. First, they went fast on the climate-related factor last year. Second, they pick up TCFD as a benchmark. And 1 year later, CSRS is the equivalent of our SEC, but the CSRS governs Shanghai and Shenzhen exchange market. They made the ESG reporting a mandate in June. Why in June? Because June is the month before the half-year reporting came out. So the government wants every company on those 2 stock markets have the ESG reporting implemented in their half-year report already. So not to say by the end of this year, everybody will be on the ESG reporting system. And also, China has been very aggressively promoting green bond and green finance since last year. And this year, China issued 2 new regulation to guide the green bond. I'm not going to read the regulation, so you guys understand this, because I will dive into this more. What is when I say green finance promoting, what really China is doing for the green finance? China launched the first carbon neutrality bond, which was $300 million in March. And China also launched the first carbon neutrality facility commercial paper, also about the same size, in March. So beginning of 2020, let me go back to here. Beginning of 2020, China released 2 regulations in March and April to guide the green bond. And right after the regulation, 2 first carbon neutrality oriented bond was released total about 600 million. And also, China this time learned for the carbon nutrition, for the climate change, for the ESG, we are all new. China is not going to chasing up advanced market to become a follower again. This time, we do it right at the first place. So when China released the carbon neutrality and the green project, they lie with EU to come up with a common standard for green project. What is the definition for green project? When a bank lend you money to invest green project, what is the criteria a green project has to fit before you can claim you are doing green, before you can say I'm doing it for real, right? And also, China partnered with the Climate Bond Initiative. This is an international organization. So in March, CBI launched the Shanghai office. Also, CBI launched a report called the Great Bay Area Report. I have to pause here to ask everybody about this, maybe to explain, I don't want to ask, Greater Bay Area. Greater Bay Area was a new concept, geographic concept in China. I believe we all know about Hong Kong. Raise your hand if you don't know, you do not know, I will explain. We all know Hong Kong and Macau. They are a special region of China. Not really, they're part of China, but because of historic reason, both areas, Hong Kong was colonized by British for 100 years. Macau was colonized by Portuguese for 100 some years, only returned to China in 1997 and 1999. They are not really follow Chinese regulation yet, not yet, but will. And in order to collaborate the effort between Hong Kong, Macau, and part of the very well-developed area in southern China, China developed this concept, geographic concept, Greater Bay Area, which covers 9 cities in Guangdong province, including Shenzhen. If we know Tencent, if we know Huawei, we probably heard about Shenzhen. And the Great Bay Area also covers Hong Kong and Macau. So when CBI released this report, a new infrastructure investment opportunity. So now the green investment can go beyond renewable energy, can go beyond financial. So the green investment can go to green infrastructure, which we also need in US. I think it will come later. So if any one of you is interested to learn more about the Green Bay, I have the link in my by the end of the slide. You guys can get it from Molly afterwards. Okay, let me come back. Let me go to the next slide. So with all this, why China are so actively, aggressively promoting the green finance, promoting ESG implementation? It's because one very ambitious goal China set for themselves. 2060, China says, the government promised they have to get to a goal, carbon neutrality, which is not easy. If we think in US doing carbon zero is very hard, I say this is at least 4 times harder in US because of the 4 times population in China. Because as of today, a lot of Chinese are still in the poverty. And because as of today, coal is still the major energy resource for China. So to reach this goal, China had to put additional effort to make the country transforming to a green economy in the next next 40 years. And one important item I would like to elaborate more is about the carbon trade market. This is very new to China. I'm not sure if you guys, any of you come from, the US with the carbon trading background. If not, that is fine because, like I said, US and China, neither of those two are leaders, but they are very important for the global climate change. Let me talk about China first, then we're going into why these two countries are so important. So Chinese carbon trading market just established last month, July. However, there are 8 pilot exchange market was launched in 2018, 8 years ago. And one number, please try to remember this number or have an idea. China launched the national trading market. However, the trading price today, $8 is the trading price. Compare with EU, $49. I read the news, I think it's yesterday or sometime this week. EU is pushing the trading price to $60. Just try to encourage people to go further, go more progressive to save, to reduce the carbon emission. And the US doesn't have a standardized nationwide price. The California price is $18. So we can tell from here, neither China nor US are the leaders. EU are the leader, but we're catching up. The importance of China's national trading market, as well as the same important as the US trading market. When we're talking about global warming, climate change, we all know carbon emission is the biggest biggest factor of the global warming. Do we know these two countries combined, both US and China combined together, produce over 40% of the global carbon emission? China accounts for 27%, US accounts for 14%. So combine these two countries together, it's 40%. So with China is the biggest carbon emitter, establish a national carbon trading market means a lot, not only for China, but for the global. Means China is going to take very serious step and encourage less carbon emission. To encourage, if you produce less, you can save those credits and trade it in the Chinese national market today, eventually trade it in the national market with $60 per ton. The moment you produce less, you make money. So this is the entire philosophy. Like I said, we have to produce, we have to make, promote this global ecosystem to make everybody, in the same track. Now, I think I like to dive into 2 cases. I have Molly send out the case study. I believe everybody read the case study. So I don't have to, read the, things little by little. I just want to point out some key point so you can remember this 2 company. You can remember this 2, what they do. First company, Ping An. Who is Ping An? Ping An is China's #1 asset management firm with over 30 subsidiaries global-wise. Ping An is an ESG leader in China, the first Chinese asset owner signed UN PRI signatory, and climate action 100+ in 2019, 2 years ago. And the third, Ping An just launched the Xinhua CN ESG system, December 2020. That's the reason I do not have the data yet. And but I believe this launch will be big. I'm looking forward to see Xinhua ESG system rating because I like the fact that this rating system is jointly launched with Xinhua News. Xinhua News is a Chinese government-backed news media. So with government back, things can move fast. Also, please keep in mind, today you guys are all new generation. You know better about how this AI work, how the high technology work. This system is based on the cutting edge technology. So the scores came out of the system will be interesting. Hopefully in the future when we had a chance to talk again, I can share some data from this rating system. More important, I like to dive into Ping An's ESG implementation strategy. Again, they might not be the best, but I think what they are doing echoes with KPMG's 2018 report key point. Couple things, remember, let me try to refresh everybody's mind. What is the 3 important things for the ESG implementation? Identify company-related factor, make it as a part of the company strategy, have the monitoring system and audit system, right? Let's see what Ping An is doing. Phase 1, Ping An trying to identify 3 drivers of its ESG effort. What are 3 drivers? I couldn't remember. Let me pull it out. The 3 drivers Ping An identified is what is their stakeholder? What is best to align stakeholders' interest? What is the best to align the long-term sustainability goal? And what is the best to stay in the higher standard corporate governance? The second, Ping An established ESG strategy execution plan externally and internally. With Ping An is the first biggest asset management firm. They have the power of capital. So when they doing externally to align with China's the government strategy, they make big influence to other companies, and they are really leading the effort for the company and for the country. And also they made a strategy, internal strategy. How do they implement ESG in the corporate, in the 30 subsidiary companies, in each fund managers, in each professionals like you guys are, how everybody, implement the strategy to their daily operation. And the third, how to integrate ESG into an investment decision process. This is more getting to a very operational stage. This is what I really like about talking about the strategy implementation. When I believe you guys are all young in your early stage of your career, sooner or later, or maybe already you participate in companies' strategy implementation, you will understand when we talk about strategy implementation, it's really getting to a point when every level decision making have to have the strategy in the mind. So this is what the team Ping An is doing. And what we can learn from Ping An, I don't want to say they are doing the best, but they are trying to do the best for their industry. They're trying to lead and influence what they can. They're trying to use the power of capital. This is what Ping An trying to do. I don't want to say today we should learn from China, but I think we have to have an open mind. Like I said, 20 years ago, what I'm learning in business school is how US company going to China teach Chinese how to do the business. But today, if we have an open mind, I say we don't have to learn everything from a Chinese company, but certain things they might be going ahead of us, maybe can help us, inspire us to think about, maybe this apply to my company, maybe that point apply to my day-to-day job. I just hope we have an open mind to accept, to recognize, identify the diversity and accept the diversity. And let me go to another case. I want to mindful for the time. Xiaomi. Anybody know Xiaomi? Okay. Anybody know Huawei? Okay, good. Xiaomi is a different version. No, wrong explanation. Huawei one of the products Huawei produce is smartphone, right? And so Xiaomi is a smartphone manufacturer in China. The competitors are Apple, Samsung, Huawei, and after US banned Huawei in 2019, Xiaomi replaced Huawei, become the number 3rd smartphone manufacturer in China. And Xiaomi also produce some family, small family electricity, like, here we have Siri, we can say, hi, Siri, tell me, please play my favorite music. And in China, Xiaomi produce a lot of smart home, small product. So this is Xiaomi. It's a company very new, very low profile. I want to point out Xiaomi founder's legacy. This is what he really wants the company to do, just like his name, because Xiaomi, Xiao means small. So his legacy is begin with something small, begin with little things. We don't have to be perfect right away. Instead of starting by perfect, we start something small and aiming for perfect later. So now let's see what Xiaomi did in their ESG implementation. Same thing, they put together 3-phase implementation strategy. Phase 1, even much more simple, put together a plan. What is our ESG approach? What is my 3-stage for ESG? Let's evaluate what it means for Xiaomi. Okay, what is our foundation? How can ESG help us fulfill social responsibility? How can ESG implementation help us create social value? This is what Xiaomi did for their phase 1 evaluation. Phase 2, identify the most significant ESG-related risk facing major stakeholders. Let me ask you something. If Xiaomi is a competitor for Apple, think about Apple. Who is Apple's major stakeholder? A smartphone producer. Who is their major stakeholder? Customer, supplier. Stakeholder is a term meaning everybody has some interest associated with the business. Stakeholder is a term comparison with shareholder. Shareholder is our investor, but stakeholder is everybody, is employee, manager, board member, customer, vendor, landlord, banker, society. Everybody associated with a company is a stakeholder. So Xiaomi identified their biggest stakeholder is their customer and the supplier. Okay. And the phase 3, after identify what is best for Xiaomi, what is the most related risk for stakeholder, Xiaomi put together a process to address ESG related issues. You can read more in the document I sent out, but I'm going to just point out a few. When Xiaomi identify the vendor is their major stakeholder, they want to use their supply chain power to influence their vendor. Like I said, yes, you do not have to be ESG oriented, but your vendor will ask you to do the right thing. If not, your vendor will not deal with you. Xiaomi put together a vendor ESG audit effort. They will audit the supply chain to make sure all the vendors are doing the right thing, are environmental, friendly. All the vendors are social friendly. This is what Xiaomi does. And also, Xiaomi decided they're going to prevent supply chain finance. If you want to be my vendor, you want a good relationship, if you do the right thing, I offer you finance, I help you grow, you are my long-term partner. This is what I want to emphasize, what I think we should take away from Xiaomi. Xiaomi is different from Ping An. Xiaomi is a manufacturer like so many manufacturers we have today, but they use their leverage, which is the supply chain leverage, to influence, to amplify the influence, to influence their major stakeholder. By doing this, they can make their customer, they can make other stakeholders, they can make their investor, employee, customer, lender, their global partner, everybody's happy because they controlled, I don't want to say control, because they use the supply chain leverage to influence, amplify the influence to the vendor. This is what we need to see big companies starting to do to help build this global ecosystem that answers Laura's question. How can we make sure everybody benefits economically and socially from implementing ESG? And given said that, I like to get touch to our very last topic today. Why US-China climate change collaboration is so important. I believe everyone understands the US-China tension by now, right? Starting from 2018, the trade war started, and you know, back and forth, these two companies, the relationship between US and China changed from strategic partner to strategic competitor today. Before, China is way behind the US, so we like to partner together. Today, it's a competitor, so each of them has the power to say, wait a minute, let's see, now we're a competitor, what we do together? We are not, you know, we cannot do the same thing as we did before. It's just like, you know, friendship and business partnership. When the partnership changed, we have to pause and rethink about it. I believe, as a Chinese American myself, I believe US and China come back, work together. It's just a matter of when and how, but we need an icebreaker point. And I believe climate change is a great icebreaker point to bring these two countries together because it's needed. Like I said, US and China, runway, China and the US, 27% carbon emitter, 14% carbon emitter, adding together 40%. We, these two countries, responsible for 40% of the global warming. How cannot we collaborate together to make some effort? Of course, between the first and the second session, we all see the effort on both ends. We're trying to work our way. I think US and China are in a different competing status on this ESG revolution. It's very interesting to watch because before, in the globalization, in the industrialization, China is always behind. So they are not really, and we're not compare apple to apple. It's really apple and, you know, I don't know, not orange, maybe something smaller. Today, both countries are not leader. Both countries are not the ESG leader, but they are the economic leader. Both countries are trying to do the best to catch up with the best one, which is the EU today. And both countries are responsible for the global warming. So they have to work together. It's not only a choice. I think it's the obligation for those two countries. And I believe the leaders recognize that. And but which area can the conversation start, right? I think, you know, we all know it's been like, you know, like this for so long, the trade war, you raise my tariff, I raise your tariff, you ban the Huawei, I'm going to ban another, you know, it's kind of like, you know, a fight. But where can we start? I say we should start by talking about how to establish carbon trade price. Now, the carbon trading, China at $8, US is $17, EU is $60. Where is the platform? How can we establish international carbon trading? We need a global pricing structure. Second, this ESG implementation is everywhere. We have SASB, we have TCFD, we have this and that. Which standard do we follow? And we should have a global framework, not to say everybody have followed the same rule. I believe the rule standard will be different by each country, but we have to own the same framework. So eventually we know where to compare. And third, I think there are more international regulations need both countries to collaborate. For example, anti-corruption. One good example, one good case study is back to a few years ago, a company called GSK. It's a pharmaceutical company. When the company identified the financial fraud, eventually dig further, it's a corruption. But the corruption is cross-country corruption. When multinationals, today, every company go multinational. No company can grow too big in one country. You know, every company go multinational. Every company go to different country. China come to US, US come to Asia. So the corruption has to have a standardized framework. There is so many areas, you know, this is just a few. And then you guys will ask, Lindsay, you're talking about they have to, you know, collaborate. Where are we today? I say climate change will be the icebreaker point for US and China to collaborate, you know, again. The progress today, most updated news for climate change, April 18, 4 months ago, both leaders launched a joint statement to say US and China agree to collaborate on climate change. But there is no detail released yet. I believe so many negotiations will be going on because between these two countries, we have so many geographic, geopolitical, geoculture, geoeconomic, so many things going on. But I say, eventually, I believe the leaders of both countries will put aside other disagreement and focus on climate change, because climate change cannot wait. This is as urgent as it has to start immediately. So with this, I like to conclude today's the second session by refresh 3 takeaways. Reason for China's fast-growing ESG revolution, because Chinese companies want to access to global capital. If they do not do good on ESG performance, they cannot get a good score, they cannot get enough global attention, enough global investment. Also, China keep opening Chinese stock market. If you guys heard about Asia, that is a Chinese domestic stock market. China keep opening stock market. By the way, BlackRock is the first foreign company allowed to run solely owned mutual fund in Chinese Asia market, both Shanghai and Shenzhen, which means a lot, which means more and more foreign capital were going into Chinese stock market. Third, by leading, by promoting, by doing good in ESG, China can increase global influence because ESG is most popular topic today, you know, simple like this, right? Second takeaway, what is ESG opportunity and the challenge for China today? China for the past 40 years is the best 40 year in China's 4,000-year history, believe it or not. 40 years ago, not to say 40 years ago, 20 years ago, when I came to here as a graduate student, in China, not every family has a car. In China, not every family can afford a kid going abroad for school. I get my US education by funding provided from US government. My family cannot pay my tuition here. That is 40 years ago. 20 years ago. Today, you guys can see so many international students from China here. And you guys can, you know, so many changes I don't have to say. So China decided from this year, change their economic development strategy from high speed to high quality. Remember, high speed to high quality, which means they're going to focus more on doing right, doing good, not just doing fast. And more important, Chinese government made this very ambitious carbon neutrality goal in 2060. Okay, it's 40 years, but 40 years go fast. I'm here for 20 years already. It's just like, yesterday, a lot of things happened. So to make this happen, China has to face a lot of challenges. And the last takeaway, why US-China collaboration is so important for the climate change control. Again, we are the two biggest influencer country in the world, both by economic and by carbon emission. There's no choice. We have to work together. Second, the need for global framework for ESG implementation and some other regulation establishment. Third, US and China representing advanced economy and emerging economy to understand what is the difference, what is the need, how to bring these two economies together for global collaboration. We need these two countries go hand by hand. So with this, that's it's all. This is all for today's presentation or lecture. I'm talking a lot. Now I like you to talk. Like same thing. Ask me question, any question, or share your thought, or say, "Hi, Lindsay, you're not right. I think this is my opinion. I'm always welcome different opinion." It's your turn now.